Welcome, everybody. This is our first semester for the succession webinars. I'm going to give you some instructions in English. I don't speak French, but today we have French people that is connecting. So this is what I want to say. Um, if you would like to listen to this webinar in English, you can do so by clicking the interpretation option on the menu at the bottom of your Zoom window and selecting English or French. This will change your audio so you can hear the English or French interpretation over the Spanish speakers at a lower level. You can leave the audio like this, but we recommend muting original audio, which is an option if you click the interpretation menu again. So now I'm going to speak Spanish.
So again, this is the Trusted Family platform. And I would like to provide a new case and where they're giving an example of succession. This is a family where the father did not go through this process. Like many founders, they think it's difficult and they prefer not to do it, and he died suddenly. And this is a family with 4 children, and all the 4 children had to start in to work together in this company. And the way they used the platform was very interesting because they had 5 different companies and each had a board, and each sibling was in charge of one of the companies. So what they did was to have a space in the platform, and they each had one, and they put their body of the directive body, and those who are not family have access to all the meeting the minutes and all the different documents and everything that's taking place and document wise in this succession. This is a way of avoiding conflict, to be aware of everything that is occurring and to have one single repository. They can have all this digital information and follow up for all the decisions that are taking place. So I wish to give you an example of a family that's using this succession. We have 2 very, very important invitees. I love this webinar because I was able to interview them 10 years, and many things have occurred, but it's a case that really struck me, struck my soul. And it's Liliana Estrada and her daughter, Marcela Londoño, with the company Eficacia, Efficiency. So maybe, Marcela, you can start. You can introduce yourself, and then we can give the floor to Liliana, who can talk a little more extensively about the company. Well, good morning to all the attendees. Thank you, Claudia, to be with you again for the invitation. My name is Marcela Londoño. I'm 49 years old. I'm going to the 5th floor this year. I'm mother of Maria Jose, 19, and Jerónimo, 16. I've been married for more than 24 years. I studied social engineering. I have an MBA. I've got an ecological degree. I've been a sports person. I love football, soccer, and tennis. And next week, it'll be 19 years that I've been in Eficacia. I entered when my daughter Maria Jose was 6 months old, and I've been there for 10 years. That's my first decade. Wonderful, happy, and with many challenges. And one happy to be in these spaces to share all these experiences. Looking back, it's easier to talk about the history. So welcome all the questions. Hopefully they're useful and to share with others. And we can see in a family setting, there are many challenges. So it's wonderful to be able to put this forward. And thank you for this invitation. Liliana, could you tell us a little more about Eficacia, this company, and you who were entrepreneur with your partner? Tell us how that was. Claudia, I founded that company in 1984 when Marcela, my daughter, who's right here, was 8 years old. And Natalia, my second daughter, was four. What I aspired to was to have this enterprise and to be useful for the community, and that I could have time to be able to educate my daughters and go to the school meetings, because I did not want to miss any of my role of being a mother. So I started with a partner, this business, and 41 years ago. And the business, Eficacia, has been transforming with time. And today it's a business that has the retail. We're a trade marketing in retail. And we have another business unit that's human resources. That has been a transformation that we have done in life. And it was my first job. I learned while by tripping and standing back up again, and having a team that helped me to bring this business forward. And with this, we were in 800 different cities in Colombia, and we have 20,000 employments. And in this tumultuous world where every day there's a challenge, I was fortunate enough that God gave me the opportunity that my daughter Marcela liked what her mom liked or was doing. And she studied and had all these skills for here, and she's been doing it wonderfully and unsurpassedly in these past 10 years. Wonderful. Okay, so let's go directly to it. But could what happened in your life so that at 61 you decided to withdraw from the country? Well, I was very diligent in the different processes. At some point, we had this protocol, family protocol, and we had looked into the children of the two partners. The only one that wanted to work in the company was Marcela, my daughter. However, that was a plan that we started working on. But when it becomes a reality, Marcela graduated from the university and she wanted to do her internship in the business. I said, no, a business with a mother, that won't happen, because that's just looking for a company where your skills will be furthered. And she worked in laboratories in Baxter, and she for 8 years, and she was a wonderful leader. And then came to us. When she came to the company, she was already a professional that had a very good standing with her peers in the company. But that Marcela arrived to the company, and she arrived in a program with a coach. So for her to grow professionally in her skills, and in order not to depend on the mother in the projects, but so that she could have her own leadership within the company, that was fundamental, because she moved freely throughout the company, and she earned her leadership with the other people who worked with us. And the day that we had the decision um, that she was going to be the manager, because she met all the competencies, but that was accelerated because I had a, a stroke, and I understood that to be a message from God. And I had a heart attack. Was heart attack, and I I gave the information in a presentation, and nobody had known before, and they all almost fell backwards. And what were they all saying? My mother is leaving the management. What is this? And so the last year, we had it to be prepared, and for Marcela to come into the management. Marcela, your mother mentioned you were in Baxter and you had your own leadership freely. But why were you the only one who wanted to work there? And you said, this is where I want to work, and you graduated in those skills. Well, Claudia, those questions, I don't even know the why. I grew up knowing this company at 8 years old. I understood things, and I would go with my mom with to her little office, which was this little thing we would play on the typewriters. But at some point, I grew up in that environment all my life. My vacations, I would go and work at the company. And who's my assistant today? Uh, it was my first boss when I was 14, and that starts this bond. And the company became a part of my life without my being conscious of it. And then I studied industrial engineering, and that was I got closer to my mom, and she would say, "What are we doing? What are we looking at?" And she would be learning from what I was looking at in my career. And we would find applications in the company. All my cases in the university were in the my company, and even friends of the university were part of a team that who sat down with my mom, and so the company was always very close. And without knowing it, in the end, we were involved within the organization. My graduation thesis was also devoted to the operational aspect. So I kept knowing more and more of the company. So I'm very active. I love adrenaline. As I said, I love competition and sports, and this is a business of services. You live with adrenaline. There is no a product that has ended the selling when another one is coming up. That's every day, and we've got to resolve it. And well, I don't know, maybe my personality, but you just fall in love with this. Um, and from there, that was the first moment of difficulty because I assumed that I was going to the company to work. I did my internship, and my mom mentioned, she said, you have to go and learn outside, and then you can come. That's where I entered to Laboratories Baxter, where I was for 8 years. When I was there, they had the meeting took place with the meeting that my mom mentioned, and they made the question of with her partner, and I said, one day I will want to be in where my mother was. I liked it. It was very natural. There was no specific moment for decision of wanting to do it. I think the difficult moment was when I was very happy in Baxter. I was growing there, and then the time has is coming, and I wasn't sure if I wanted it at that moment. I know I wanted it, but finally, with decisions with my children, it was the moment to go and to learn. To the company, and there was a flexibility for me to be with my daughter. And so in 2017, I ended my maternity leave, and I started the process that my mother was mentioning of going in through all the areas and know all the continuance and how the company is. Marcela, Liliana, you were mentioning that Marcela was the person who was take over the management. That was in January. I don't know when you made the decision, and you told me in January I made the decision. I rented an office, and I never went back to Eficacia. So physically, you left. Could you tell us a little of that sensation of leaving that power? And you were also mentioning something that hurt you deeply was that they said you cannot talk again with the management, all these people who had helped you, your team, and your friends. And you told me, Claudia, I had to leave and find new friends. That decision that you were saying, uh, I have heard so many experiences of people that are the successors of companies, and they were saying that the people that resign don't leave, and but you literally physically left. What was your feeling then? Well, Claudia, the decision as I made it with no pressure, that really made it easier. That eased the way. What we were living when Marcella was about to start, the board had elected a committee, but there were some topics that were difficult for Marcella and me. There are some people that Marcela considered that should not continue in the company, and I said, "No, I'm not making anybody leave. I will hand this over to you, and then you can make your decisions." That the letting go included that emotional and caring part because I had to leave everything to Marcela to not have conflicts, leave everything in all the dimensions. And the biggest dimension was that the office of management is it just is empty, got voided. All the furniture, and the new manager comes in, will design how she wants it with the budget that she think considers. And me, also, I looked for another office, and I said, "This will be my new world. I will also be as I would like to, and I would do new things." So I did not return to Eficacia. I said, "This is here. I'm here in this office. That for me, I will be here for anything that you need me." But that was wonderful. That decision, that letting go of these, that's the most difficult part. We have to have our own things, our because all the everything that you're leaving behind, but then you have your new uh, dreams. One, we had just gone through two important processes. One was corporate governance, that we analyzed it with an external advisor. We modified some things. I was manager and owner, but Marcela was going to be a manager reporting to a board, which is very different. And what we did was we reviewed the strategy with an expert, which gave us uh, different things to focus on, and we had it on paper, but Marcela would be building it. And the only way to do it that Marcela could was it was Marcela with her team and her ideas. And there was a leader in the past, which was in the board, but not in the organization. That was very positive. So I didn't return, um, definitely, and that is a today. I like that decision, and that really helped Marcela to consolidate her leadership. She arrived there, but she was also developing new things that she needed to do once arriving at that management. Okay, so I'll start with the sensible part, the difficult part. When you started, and uh, Marcela started as a manager, you left, and you start having uncomfortable situations. Marcela, could you tell us what situations came up that were uncomfortable, where you had, as a manager, had to review issues of expenses, dividends, things that you as um, owner and manager, because that's a dichotomy. The person is a manager, but also owner. And for you to be a person who's an owner, who's a manager, who's accountable to a board. So, what started happening between you that started creating some conflicts? And Marcela can let us know, and then Viviana. Well, Claudia, there are a few things that are difficult, starting with today when we were talking with my mom and looking back, wow, the same situation interpreted from two different sides differently. I think it was difficult and something that I started that was starting the difficulty that my mom said was the interpretation of you cannot speak with the manager anymore because up to some point if I were in her shoes and will be prohibited to talk with the people, I would have been the same. But my position was never you cannot talk. I was saying you cannot talk about work and the everyday issues because she will never let go and we will not be able to develop the things we want to. Of anything else, do, yeah, talk about the children, trips, food, etc. But I think the while we were so hesitant in that moment, the interpretations play a difficult role, and from there, then the environment became a little tense. But then with I was afraid of her not letting go, and she because if she would come if I come into here physically, who are people going to obey? So I was a bit afraid what we say in Colombia of getting burnt out. If I try to be managing and my mom is talking on behind my back of things of the company, that things won't change and I wouldn't change. So we were all pretty hesitant. So we thought that my mom would not ask because she's interested in the company. So then there were different issues that came up. There were some tense moments at that point, and my mom was totally disciplined about leaving and not coming back. So what started happening in the board? The board started losing their board space in issues of strategy. And then it just became an operational follow up where my mom, since she felt that she could not speak with anyone, the only space where she could ask for things was on the board. So the company, it's not that it stops and starts anew, but it continued. But then the board became the place for the follow up of everyday operational issues. Um, so, in those follow ups, there were different topics. You mentioned, well, dividends. I didn't know anything about dividends. As my mom said, it was my first time that I sat in a chair as CEO because she started little by little, but I had this big jump. And there are so many topics that when you're on a board or something, or you're not on a board, you don't talk about these. And as in these companies with shares, and that year where she started was a year that had not ended with good yields. So it was a different year started. And when I would hear the people on the board questioning dividend and it would not be able to help for the next year and the risks. how do I do this? I don't want a decision that I could make and could compromise the company, and then people would say, "Oh, this second generation um, turned the company belly up." And so, what things would be correct because of the yields and issues that were non-negotiable, and the company is going to end up in my hands, under me. So of course the defend of the shareholders for their rights and the risk of the company, well, it's unavoidable to have tension, issues of expenses, for example. I started reviewing emails, and at that moment, well, my mom, since she had grown with the company, she approved everything. She knew everything. She approved even travel tickets or even purchases of very small amounts. And I said, if I pay attention to this, if I start learning of all these little details, when do I work? But then I can't have the company stop. So then there were decisions of levels of approval by variables. And in the first board, my mom said, "Be careful, because this company, every peso is important, and we have to be the ones paying attention to everything." And then I said, "Well, then how do I work?" It just are different styles, and of course, that created tension. And the last thing was the follow ups. There were thousands of topics that she would work on, but for some reason had not been concluded. But then she would come to the board and say, "Well, why were things not done?" Because the company was the same, and well, we just haven't been able to conclude those issues. It's not so easy. So when we want to be able to do things and achieve things, and there was an ingredient that it's not minor. And the fact is, that's my mom. One thing is a manager, but when you feel that it's my mom asking you and exposing you uh, in front of a board, I know that she didn't want to hurt me, but why is she asking these follow up questions on these issues in front of the board? So I started feeling I haven't even sat down on the chair. Why is this happening? And I'm only learning. So there was a sensation of, and and yes, the board meetings were difficult. Everything, it was everybody in silence and only she and I talking. So some people were of her team and now on my team. And yeah, when we look back, these were very tense moments. But I believe that it's normal in a case of succession because, as I said, she didn't end and leave of well, it was her company and she was on the board, and the team is the same. And so there's still that bond. The company continues functioning. And also, there were things that were ongoing, good and bad. So, all of that uh, created tension, decisions on clients or levels of service. There were lots of things that made the environment a bit tense. And Lily, I know that at some point, Marcela, and on a board, she said that she mentioned that one of the board meetings she left crying. She just couldn't. It was already July, and you had made the decision of having external advisors, and the president of the board was also external. That's very important in a family company because if the president were company, I mean, if the ex manager were the president of the board with the manager, the daughter, what would you say? Well, I remember that happened, and we had traveled with my husband, and we hadn't gone to the board. And at that board, they made the decision. of risks. They mentioned the risks of the company. So they conducted a study of all the risks in the company. And at that board, they talked about that. And so on the next meeting, they started talking about these horrible risks that we had delivered this company at that moment with so many problems. And that day, I just let it go. I said all businesses have risks, and with 20,000 employees at that moment, we had more. How are there not going to be labor suits? We've got so many businesses. And I started with that. And I started getting all upset. I said, all those risks. Well, maybe the company is unviable. And Marcela decided that the company was unfeasible. So when I spoke so strongly, Marcela just got to her wits' end and left crying. And when I went to go see her, uh, I made an effort to continue, but I uh, came up with a committee for the new board in my office. And what I was more worried about was I had never had problems that became a family matter, and this was becoming a family issue because now Marcela and I were not talking to each other, and Miguel, her husband, in the middle, and Natalia, my other daughter, and is who's right, Marcela or Liliana. And so I invited them to my office. I proposed, I talked about dividends at that moment. That's non-negotiable. You need to approve these because the two shareholders need the dividends. And the other issue is that I needed all of them to help with those relationships because definitely for me, it was my family was priority over the company, and that was important. That because decisions were then made, and we had a president of the board that was very active. It was had been with us for a long time, but he wasn't acting like president. He acted more like an advisor. So we started thinking that we needed to change that president. We needed to change a president who really had that role, take on it. So we started saying, um, uh, because the president had became a partner, became a partner with Marcela. She could consult him, and the relationship is much, much better um, because the issues of the company are taken to the board, and there they can be discussed much better. That's something I remember. Something that happened when I mentioned I had invited you to be part of this conference that we had in Cartagena. I remember with Marcela something that you said to me. You said, Claudia, I feel I'm losing my mom. That is very hard. And on the other side, Liliana said that before this invitation to Cartagena, Liliana says, how are we going to stand up there and say this is wonderful, this transition, so and so on? And so you invited Marcela to talk. You told me that that day you both talked and cried and got together again as mom and daughter, which was a difficult process. Marcela, tell us about that sense, that feeling that many people can have that feeling, as Liliana was saying, that space between company and family that starts permeating, and you either lose your mom or dad because you're a manager. Yes, I think this time we didn't. We have a timeline of many different things, not topics, but I think I don't remember well, Claudia, the conference, when it was, to tell you when that precise moment was and to remember the conversation, but it was a situation that was difficult. What my mom was saying, evaluating the risks, which was part of my uh, learning process, what the risks were, and so on. There was also another ingredient in that board, which the which was what came together for me to leave that meeting because I I was there was all this follow up. Why hasn't this been done? Why hasn't? So I was very armed with with data. So this happened this way. And then I said, if it was so easy, why didn't you do it? Why did you leave it to me? And in that board where I left the meeting, I left with the sensation when the partner came to me and then the daughter of the partner came to support me. I said, the partner and the daughter of the partner come out to support me and my mom doesn't. Really, I can't believe this. So it was that sensation that this cannot happen with my mom. I don't feel that she's my mom. There are things where you have to separate, and for the partner to come after me and not my mom, maybe the moment, well, maybe it's better that she didn't come. But looking back, things happen how they should happen. But at that moment, I was thinking it was important for the partner, my mom's partner, and not my mom. And in that board in particular, I remember I left and I said, well, this is the end of it, that I don't have a mom. And that was awful because I was losing my mom and my dad. It was difficult, complex because when I left the board, my dad said, are you going? We'll see you this weekend at the farm. And I said, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to see her. I don't want anything. You don't do this to a daughter, and then we were not in speaking terms. So, and my dad and well, and the children, you can visit them, but I don't want to see them. It was too emotionally charged because, in addition to all the tensions around the business and the numbers, etc., my mom, and well, mom is a mom. So I think those were very hard moments. There was a trip. There was a coincidence of a trip and the boards, but there was a marker, um, a reference point at the end of December. In addition to all the everything that had happened, 2016, and it was December, and I said, I'm not going to continue like this. Either this resolves, or I just cannot continue like this. And there happened that the mother of one of my best friends from school died, and I went to church and I started seeing my friends, and all surrounding, and feeling the loss of their mom, and I'm going, and my mom is alive, and we're not in speaking terms. And my mom came to the church, and she, when she came in, and with all this crying, the year's going to end, and well, I called to her for her to sit next to me, and with all this emotion, I felt that she took my hand. And I think the panel had been in 2017, but at least there had been a moment. Well, we also cried in the panel, but at that uh, uh, moment, we had a meeting in her office where we said practically, look, the cost of this is too high, and either we find a way to do something, and because and that's something came up. That's what I think, and this anguish of my mom of, and if I leave, what would happen? And then both of us started thinking we need to do things differently for the family to maintain as a family and maintain itself, and the company as well. That was a long conversation. It was hard. It was honest, with ups and downs, and it ended with some agreements. And then I think that the next year, within that role of the president, plus what my mom had been working with them, but after having that space, both of us, then it was difficult. It didn't change from one day to the next because we aren't robots. But then we started having the environment, the ambience, for a space not only for us but for the board to also have a more strategic pathway and to move forward. Yeah, so that was a process, but it also ended up as a very lovely process of us being very sincere and full with love, and being able to yield and to arrive at agreements and have limits. We don't think that that's going to be important when the things are going good, but maybe looking back, maybe there are things that we should do before, but there are not things that these things were going to come up. But of course, as I say, looking back, you're very intelligent. But at that moment, uh, things happen as they have to happen. That testimony is lovely. And Lilana, then maybe you can add something, but you were also saying that your role on the board changed, having that president, but then you don't prepare the board before with what you will tell us now is fantastic. You're a board member that has other interests, that is uh, being able to bring in technology issues, enterprising venture capital to the board, and you're being filled with other things that it's not to be the controller looking at operational issues. Your role is different now. Could you tell us a little and talk a little about what Marcela mentioned, but also how you reinvented your role on the board? Well, among the things we did when Marcela was saying she was leaving was all of this corporate governance, and we started trying to find new board members that could be entrepreneurs, um, corporate persons with different profiles, so that they could speak in a language that Marcela ta- talked. So we went with a headhunter for recruiting. We interviewed 30 people in Colombia, and those 30 people, from then we elected the new board. Among them, there was a person very technologically inclined. And in the 32 years that I worked in the company, it was always accompanied by technology. And that person within that profile, I decided that should not be a board member, but more a partner. I don't know if Eficacia with Liliana, uh, but in, in my conversations with him, I started seeing a new world started opening up, which was training in technologies. So I started with him to learn, and we went to seminars of blockchain and circularity, and I started to work in programs that there are in Colombia that are called STARCO, which are to think of people who are 23 years old who have a dream of having a computer, that have a speech for investors to believe in them. And so I was really be in that new world. And that helped me because obviously I never talked anymore of operational issues, but little by little, I was bringing new things. Look, there are these new things, and I keep bringing new things because starting from that moment, it was wonderful to be up to date in technology, especially technology of startups and in companies with technology. So I changed my my role on the board, and I'm more in pro of going further. We can do more. So I leave the messages, but Marcela is very diligent and says, "Oh, we're doing this and this." And it's not only I am dreaming, they also have their dreams, and I love for them to tell me how we're doing. And actually, today, as Marcela was saying, the board is different, now focused on strategy, very few operational systems. And I'm very happy today that we have a change. Well, one, that I have my daughter back, but I admire her. It's chapeau to her, and she was like a sponge that received and learned, and now she's reproducing that, and she's a leader in the industry. So I'm really satisfied with this on this pathway, and now we're on different topics. Okay, so let's talk about 10 years later. You said something that you said it was uh, going back with meeting the legacy. Marcela, you went into the company, had difficulties, and conflicts help one grow, and it makes one talk about things that we haven't talked of before. And without conflicts, it's difficult to arrive at agreements. But after 10 years, and looking at the clients that your mom has brought in, what have you discovered from that legacy that you didn't see before? And what did you Liliana mentioned what you admire of Marcela, and Marcela, what have you found in your mom? Well, Claudia, everything is a process, I think. And to be able to reach that place of remembering, just as an anecdote, there was a turning point for me in which I was able to let go of certain types of pressures and let go of the pressure of having to replace my mom or replace the manager, and understand that you aren't either replacing the manager or the mom. If one takes on a challenge, this process of understanding that I didn't have to be like her, it's fundamental. It would have been wonderful not to have that before I started, because not doing it really created a lot of pressures. I mean, we're absolutely different. So, in style, in our strengths. So, when I start saying, I've got to have what my mom has, there aren't my skills, then we start thinking that we're owing something and afraid. And to be able to have my own identity, I can be a good manager being me. I don't have to be my mom. The way I am naturally, and letting go of the expectations that I created and the ones that are mentioned. If you are a manager of efficacia, how should one be? And that created that was something that clouded my view of what I could do freely. So looking back 10 years, I think that Never. I never neglected the legacy, not even in the difficult moments. I think that the legacy could be the greatest motor, so that at that moment of difficulty, in 2016, for me not to say, well, I'm fed up and I'm leaving. No, the legacy of everything she had done and the effort, what the company meant for her, for the company, for the clients, for the country. So in the end, it was the biggest motor to be able to surpass that difficulty and not to have a false step and say, you know what, get that, take this business and give it to somebody else. So today, when I look at it, I see it from a different dimension because I'm part of the legacy. But it's very nice when I when I meet with the clients, and the old timer clients, and talk about my mom and the ones who built this history with her, and remember difficult moments when they worked with her and how they were able to surpass them. And so this mix of recognizing the dimension of what she did professionally to create this is really something astonishing, but also living beautiful moments where there have been recognition, awards, recognitions, and this brings together with love and the pride of it's my mom. My mom is just amazing. It's this really lovely mix. And on that road, on that journey, looking back in the end with all this story of what do I admire, I think to be able to recognize each other from the respect of the personality and style of each, and for both of us to see it's we don't have to be the same or to be in agreement, to love each other and to build together. Was that part of what we lived through in that process? I'm supposing that maybe she at some moment said, Marcela should do this or should do that, because ultimately that was what worked for her. So it's inevitable to be worried if Marcela isn't this way or another, seeing that that had worked for her. Well, in that process of uh, to understand that we're different and to value the talents and the strengths of the other, and recognizing that we're very different. And in the end, something very important, and it's that we both have a genuine interest in for it to go well for us as a family and as an organization, even if we're not in agreement. Today, when I see a manager of a company this size, what do I admire? It's very difficult, the role of enterpriser and role of manager. Definitely, I think my mom is an entrepreneur, unmatched. There are certain characteristics. You have to be bold, visionary, president insist, be able to overcome obstacles, look for solutions. To be an entrepreneur is very different. In my personality and characteristics, I don't think I would be a very good entrepreneur. So I arrived as a manager. And so my mom says my leadership style, I'm close. I think I have good skills to lead and to manage. And I think for her, when this company became so big, that with that entrepreneur conception of making decisions quickly, that's difficult for a company this big. So at that moment, it was more difficult for her to manage because it couldn't go at the rate, at the loss, at the speed that she was always accustomed to as an entrepreneur. But we admire each in our different professional characteristics and personal. But also, when I look back, I admire her much more because I don't think, well, I'll never know, but I don't think that I would have been able to. So I admire the fact her from that idea that from that entrepreneurship, and there's a company that provides so much development, social development opportunities, is just something phenomenal. And to see her today telling the stories, I go, wow, oh, that's wonderful. That's spectacular. And I love that difference of the company is different, is at a different moment than being entrepreneur. And that's important of um, to grow a company, and a company now that's at a different stage. We need people with different skills. Just to wrap it up, Liliana, in your day to day, especially on the issue of women, because many times it's an issue of power to be manager, owner, the leaving power. At any point, was this difficult for you? Was this now I'll going to do this other thing? I'm going to invest in startups, and this person is important for your life. How is that of letting go of power? Well, the thing is, I don't know. Each of us has a different interpretation of power. Really, I never was a person that felt that I was powerful. I felt myself as a worker. I worked and worked and worked. So I didn't really think or feel that I had power. For me, transformation, for things to occur, that was much more important than power. Went beyond power. Well, some people and their personalities become powerful, but I don't feel that I'm powerful. I'm powerful in other issues that God gave me. I'm powerful in family member, but I never felt I was powerful in meetings because I always worked on a team. So I don't have a nostalgia of power. And the truth is, today, I'm still a person, a woman who I don't feel I'm powerful. I feel that I'm a person who summons. I like to be the center of all being united, and let's get together. If there's an event, then I'm the first promoter. But that's not power. I think we need to differentiate. So no, I didn't have nostalgia of power. Power, I think, when one feels powerful is because it's maybe they need something to feel powerful. I never felt it really. So that's a good lesson for life because it goes together with a little bit of humility. And I think leaders should be humble. We should not make oneself feel powerful in order to feel well. Okay, I don't see any questions on this side, but I would like to close and I would like to congratulate you, what you have told us of the difficulties that you had at some point, of how you came together. I am really astounded, Marcela, how you were able to identify that we need to fill in those shoes of being a manager when dad or mom have been managers, but to be able to identify in oneself the strengths that make one different, taking the company to a different point. I think it's really lovely that you were able to overcome that conflict where you could talk of different things, where you prepared the company for that succession so that Marcela could have a different type of challenges to be able to organize yourselves with a corporate governance, with a president of the board that was not a family member. I think that those are very important elements, which have made you successful. And Liliana was able to reinvent herself and be able to contribute. And to be able to have a family, I was saying at the beginning, where the success, the employment success or labor was able, you were able to have a wonderful family, a united family, and grandchildren who are very important, and you make plans that are very important. So I would like to congratulate you both. It's really something to be proud of. It's not a succession of mother-daughter, especially in Latin America. You are an example, and thank you for accepting this invitation. I feel very proud of your case, and hopefully I'll be seeing you shortly in Cali. Thank you, Claudia. Excellent, your invitation. Marvelous. Thank you all. So we will see you next month with another case of succession. Thank you. Goodbye.